So what are they doing in school besides
what's the
putting up
point?
different flags?
Well, what
instead of
they're
the American
actually
flag?
doing is they're learning how to be political activists.
Yeah.
Because if you can
Sure.
make children into political activists before they're even teens or whatever, if you can awaken a critical racial consciousness or awaken a critical consciousness in them, not only do you make them more neurotic and make them more likely to be unhappy, which unhappy people become activists. Happy, content people do not engage in revolutionary activities. Mm-hmm. So the leftists in schools, they want kids to be neurotic. And you make kids neurotic by starting when they're young and showing them all these horrible things about the world, right? Mm-hmm. Look how terrible this country is, and look, this was real, and these poor people here, and look, this is bad. And you show them all these things, and you end up with kids that are like
useful idiots,
essentially traumatized.
There you go.
And they are useful idiots.
Well, look what Lenin said back in the Bolshevik Revolution. He talked about the way to control the population is through education, and that's what they're doing, and that's what they're doing here. We've accelerated on it, but we started in 1964 by taking the Bible out of the schools, right? Mm-hmm. We give it to prisoners, of course, but everybody was homeschooled prior to public education coming into the late 1800s, maybe, when we started public education. Mm-hmm. Everybody was homeschooled. Mm-hmm. You know, they grew up on the farm, they read the Bible, they could learn whatever kind of history they could learn, but we changed that so drastically, and the brainwashing of these kids is the biggest. I think the blessing of COVID is so many parents woke up saying they've got to get their kids out of public education. 2 million more families are now homeschooling because of that.
Yeah.
I mean, you see such a visceral reaction from the left towards parents that homeschool their kids, or even religious schools. I mean, they also have an axe to grind with religious schools, and the reason is because the kids that come out of those schools end up emulating their parents more than they end up emulating their teachers, and that's a huge problem. Like you said, if there's any sort of
want control, they want
precisely,
control.
yeah.
What's interesting, go back to the 60s with those parents, I mean, and the whole hippie movement and all that, and moved 60s and the 70s. The whole thing back then was we are against the man. The man was the government. Those same people did a 180 during COVID.
Yeah,
and said, trust the man and don't question science. So I laughed at it all the time. I go, but that's what science does.
When I hear people say those kind of things that in the 60s they were saying, don't trust the man, and they were against the man. Even things like they were against the Vietnam War. I push back, and I don't think they actually were against the man or against the Vietnam War. They just were against the people in power because they were out of power. They were against the Vietnam War because America was fighting communists, right? The communists in Vietnam, the North Vietnamese. If it were, I mean, Jane Fonda went to Vietnam, and she was very happy to take pictures with the Viet Cong, the fighters, the military of the North Vietnamese. So it wasn't. I don't think that they were actually against the man. They were against the United States. They were against capitalism. They were against the status quo here in the West. But they weren't against they weren't against powerful centralized government. They were very pro centralized government because they were communists. They would call themselves anarchists and probably LARP as anarchists, but they certainly weren't.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.